Hi, I'm Allison Waring, and this week's question is, what if someone does not want you to write this story? So this is a serious question and not an easy one to answer, but I can offer some suggestions. So the first thing is you don't have to figure this out right now. Right now, as you are writing your story, you are the only person seeing it. You're the only person reading it. You are deciding what goes in, how it's told, and the focus should really be on, can you craft this as truthfully and as well as you possibly can? You don't need to worry right now about what people are going to think well down the road. You don't need to worry about what happens if it becomes a national bestseller or if Oprah loves it or whatever. I'm not trying to minimize the seriousness of that, but just to say you don't need to let it shut you down right now. And ideally, you feel full freedom to tell the story that you need to tell for you right now. The other thing is that stories can change as we write them. In fact, they most often do change as we write them. And so the problems that you feel you are going to face are probably not the same ones that you're looking at down the road. People can change, characters in stories can change, the way we craft scenes, whether or not they stay in the story or not, whether or not they have the primary focus that we feel they do can also change. So you don't need to sort it out. What you need to just do now is write and write and write and get as much of it down as you can. There are a few practical tools. The pseudonym is the obvious one. In other words, giving people different names than they have in real life. And obviously people can't be fully disguised in that way, but I think of it as a mask that you're giving someone that they can choose to put on or not. And it's a very simple way of just concealing people slightly. And outside of your circle of acquaintances, it actually is an effective tool of just shielding people somewhat. I've always used pseudonyms actually in nonfiction work because I also feel that we're only ever writing our impression of that person. And I think a pseudonym is a nod to that reality, that this is my version of this person. And so I like to just grant people pseudonyms, not because they might be angry, but because it's not them. It's a character based on them, ideally very heavily based on them because we're in nonfiction. But anyway, we're painters. Writers are painters, or I think of us as painters, and we have our own style and texture. And I don't think there are many people who read themselves in a book and say, oh yes, that's me exactly. No, they'll always want to tweak different things or wonder why you chose this and not that. So pseudonyms. The other is not everyone has to be in the scene. So if you have a scene of family members around the table and there's someone who does not want to be in your book, or you don't want to figure in, or that you want to grant some kind of anonymity to, they don't need to be present. We don't need to have every single person in the room who was there if they're not contributing directly to the story. There are choices that writers make to bring in characters and leave out others. So you have some choices in there. There are also, I think, really creative solutions where you can speak about people metaphorically, or never refer to them directly, or have them appear as if you have to be transparent with your reader about what you're doing, obviously, but have them appear almost symbolically. And you are the story. They are a character in your story, but you are the story. And so you are also the author, obviously. So you have a lot of creative control about how the story is built. And the more, I always say to people, the thing that feels like the obstacle to your writing the story has the potential to be the portal to its most creative iteration, meaning what feels like a problem is actually a creative problem. And with the right creative solution, it might be even stronger for it. Just as the knot in a tree can become its most interesting feature. Similarly, when we have a challenge in writing, our way of getting around that challenge can become the most interesting part of the story. Okay. Mainly, though, I'd love to say, write it for yourself now. And Worry about all those other people down the road when you're really and truly ready to go out the door with it. You may, I would venture to guess that it's going to feel very differently then, and the way you're going to deal with it will only become apparent at that point. So don't try to figure it out too soon. Okay, enjoy.